Hey, guys. So in case we haven't had a chance to meet yet, I am not a pastor of anything. I'm not a youth pastor. I'm not a preacher. I don't work here. So I am literally just, I happen to be a girl. So that is good for this one, I think. And I happen to be Taylor's friend. I happen to be a mediocre communicator, and I really love Jesus. So here I am. I think it's very cool. I want to give points. Where's Cadence? Where? Oh, she's in the back. She's doing her thing. Just giving girls an opportunity to be up here on the stage is really cool. This is a trip to me that we're doing a series over female revivalists. Yeah, there it is. This is crazy. You guys don't understand, but when I was in like a youth group, like this was not on a screen. Like we didn't have any messages that said anything like this. In fact, most of the time it was understood that when like somebody was called to preach, like that was the opportunity where like the dudes came down and got their calling and we, kind of hung out in the back. So the fact that like we're doing this is wild to me. The fact that I'm up here is wild to me, but the song said Prince of Peace, so we're just going to do this thing, okay? So Taylor tricked me into this message. So he sent me a text message that said, if you had to pick like your 5 favorite like women from the Bible, like who would it be? And I had like no game whatsoever. Like I was immediately like texting back. I was like, here are all the people that I would absolutely love to see messages over, because it's so rare that we ever do messages over. Like women are usually like a side character in the stories that we do messages over. But I was like Esther, like Rahab, Ruth, like Abigail, which you guys don't know about her, but you're going to by the time that we're done today. Like there's all these amazing stories. And then he hit me with, well, like, which one do you want to preach about? And I was like, well, I don't want to preach about any of them. But I kind of do too, like true story. Like if I got the opportunity to tell you about some women in the Bible, I was really excited. So he's still one of my favorites for sure. So if you weren't here last week and you didn't get to hear about Rahab, it's an amazing story. And then I was thinking about her story, and I was thinking about all the other stories I wanted to tell, and I noticed a pattern, and I hope you do too. I've got it narrowed down to one that we're really going to talk about. But before there, you have to hear my runner-up story, because Abigail's story is like just such an amazing story. But to recap Rahab, just so you guys can remember, was a prostitute, right? I'm going to tell this in the funniest way that I can think, because I really think the story itself is really funny. She is a prostitute who hides dudes on her roof. Like this is apparently a pastime of hers. And she hides 2 spies from Israel on her roof, because she's for sure done it many, many times. And then she lies to the police about where they are, and then jailbreaks them out of Israel, and somehow this woman makes it to like the Hall of Faith. Like God's like, that's my girl, like that's who I use. So that's Rahab. I want you guys to meet Abigail. Do I have any Abigails in here? Do I have some Abbies? Who knows an Abby? Oh wait, are you seriously? I'm gonna look at you the whole time. I'm so sorry. But do you know your story? No, it's cool. I'll fill you in. It's okay. All right, everybody's with me. So Abigail, David and Goliath. Everybody's familiar with that one? Okay, good. Track with me here. So David, at the time that he does David and Goliath, is like 14, and he takes out Goliath with like a slingshot and like a rock, right? And so then, you guys don't know this, but he had been anointed to be king before he ever did that. But there was already a king, King Saul. King Saul did not kill Goliath. And in fact, David becomes super popular because he was the guy that took out Goliath when Saul wouldn't take out Goliath. So Saul brings him in, and he is raised with Saul for like the rest of his high school years, which was apparently a really tumultuous time, okay? Because like he and Saul, you can understand, had some issues together. And occasionally Saul would try to kill him, would just decide like I was gonna take him out. And so then David would have to go on the run. So when this story picks up, David goes on the run. And he's been out kind of gallivanting, but he pulls a pretty cool move. He takes like a huge chunk of Saul's army with him. So he's got like 600 guys with him. And they're going like all over the countryside, just sort of shenaniganizing and doing different things. And so that's not a word, but we're going to make it a word today. So when we show up here, what he's doing is when he goes from place to place, 600 people is a lot of people, and he needs the people who own the land that he's passing through to kind of feed them. So he'll like look out for their sheep, which is really funny to me too, because he was a shepherd. He would look out for their sheep, and then he would say like, hey, I made sure nothing happened to your sheep. Will you feed me? So he goes to a place of a guy named Nabal. and I need to stop and tell you about Nabal because he's a very interesting character. Nabal is like, the Bible describes him as a boorish fool. Like, this is like he's a jerk, okay? He drinks too much, he's aggressive, he's arrogant. He's probably the type of person that would like inappropriately hit on the waitress at like Buffalo Wild Wings. Like, are you getting a good like description? Like if Taylor Otterbein had never found Jesus, Nabal, okay? Now, we good? We're good, okay. Nabal gets word that David's there and David's asking for food, right? And he is on one and is like, no. And he kind of like slams him big time. He's like, who is this son of Jesse out here just asking people for whatever? It seems like a lot of servants are just running away from their masters. Maybe he needs to get back over to Saul where he belongs, and tells the servants to go tell David no, and all those things. So the servants go to David, and David's, mind you, he's like, 19, 20-ish, right? So like he's kind of a hothead at this moment, and he's a big deal, like everywhere he goes. So he gets enraged. He tells every one of his 600 people, like, strap your swords. Like, we are taking out the entire household of Nabal. And the servants come back, and this is very interesting. They do not go to Nabal. They go to somebody else. Does anybody want to guess? They go to Abigail. Now, Abigail is Nabal's wife and is the only woman in Scripture to be identified as both beautiful and wise. So for all my dudes in the room, it is a very rare thing to find somebody who is both beautiful and wise. But Abigail, the servants come to her, and I can just see it in my head. I don't know if you guys can, but I'm just seeing her like rolling her eyes. Like, this cannot be the first time that she's like put out a fire that this man has made for her. So they go to Abigail. Abigail's like, okay, I'm going to fix it. She completely goes behind Nabal's back. This is a messy lady, okay? She completely goes behind his back, loads up everything they have, the best of what they have, and takes it to David. And when she takes it to David, not only does she take it to David, she like lays on the charm when she does. So this girl can flirt. I was told to tell you that she was rizzing on David. I don't think I can pull that off, but I said it, so now you guys know. Like, she gushes over him. She tells him, the Bible says she prophesies that he's going to be the greatest king of all time and how amazing. Then she slams her husband, just completely trashes him. He is a fool to defy you. Like, he's a wicked, wicked man, and just like throws on the charm. And David, of course, has like a change of heart, right? He's like, this girl, she says smart things. Like, she's a pretty smart lady. I could change my mind. I could do that. And he does, spares the entire household. Side note here. 10 days later, Nabal dies of what I can only assume that how the Bible describes a heart attack. I don't know if David sent some people in to take him out, and I don't know if Abigail had enough and took him out, but 10 days later, he's out. He's gone. Does anybody want to guess who David sends for? Abigail. Yeah, this got some Game of Thrones vibes to it, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, so he sends for her. They actually do get married, and she ends up being one of David's wives. So I wanted you to hear that story, one, because it's just a really cool story, but two, I want to see if you can start seeing the pattern. These are really messy women. They're messy for different reasons, and I think it's important, and I want you to kind of find yourself in these stories if you can. If you can stick with me and kind of find yourself in here. They're messy because the circumstances they came into, no way Abigail picked Nabal in a lineup. Like, it's just not possible. No way Rahab picked prostitution as her line of work. Like, that's nobody's kindergarten want to, Like, these are people who found themselves in situations and circumstances that were completely outside their control, and the circumstances were messy. And then here they are trying to make it work where they are, and their reactions in the middle of this is messy too. It's really messy. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're breaking the rules. They're getting in up to their chins. They're making messes. Can you relate to that? Do you guys find yourself sometimes in some messes where it's not your fault, it's not where you planned on being, but the house that you grow up in is messy, or the things that have happened to you are messy? And maybe you're like, yeah, that's true. And also maybe you can relate to, I'm a mess in those things too. I don't handle them well. I'm quick on the draw. I'm hot-tempered, or I have panic attacks. I get depressed. I shut people out. I do it really fast. So maybe you guys can identify with the fact that there's mess. I have really good news. God is super obsessed with mess. Like, he is super obsessed with mess. if you look throughout the scripture and you read the stories, whether it's guys or whether it's girls, it's almost like he seems to be drawn like, yep, that'll work. That's what we needed. I don't know if you guys ever watch the TikTok videos of like the really dirty rugs that get cleaned off. Is that just an algorithm for like the old people? Okay, cool. Everybody's like, yes, the rugs. Yeah, so I mean, if you've ever watched it, when it goes in fast moment, you're like, this is satisfying. Like, look at it all. It's almost like the dirtier, the better. This is 100% how God sees mess. Not that he's like in love with the mud, but the process of like what happens when it starts getting cleaned off, it's amazing. He's obsessed with mess because he's so good at cleaning it. And that's exactly when you read in these stories what we're going to see. So now it's time for you to meet our main character. Okay, is everybody with me? Everybody ready? Am I keeping your attention? Except for like the junior hires who are like, no, we were done like 5 minutes ago. Okay, hang in there with me. So we're going to meet a woman, and she has no name. I wish I could tell you that I'm giving you like all the women, like all the, but if you come find me later, I'll give you the greatest hits of the people who have names. But this woman has no name, and we're going to jump in with her in John chapter 4. Okay. Now Jesus learned that, it's over here. That's even better. Now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact he was not. Jesus who baptized but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now, he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground where Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from his journey, sat down at the well. It was about noon. All right, one more. Okay. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples, they'd gone into town to buy some food, so just him and her. Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Okay, I have to tell you some backstory here. Is everybody with me on this? Okay, if you made it through Abigail, you can make it through this. Okay, so Jews and Samaritans, no bueno. They don't talk to each other. Jews would have considered Samaritans like half-breeds. It's sort of like a Hildell, Fort Gibson kind of thing. Like, we don't talk to them. In fact, it's one of those things where Jews would have considered it like we go around Samaria. Like, that's how hardcore this is. Like, we're willing to add time and hours to bypass this. We certainly don't talk to them. So that's the first problem for her, is that she is a Samaritan and he is a Jew. The second problem is that he is a man and she is a woman. So I know this culture, it feels like forever ago, but true story, like they don't talk to each other. Like you're only talking to each other if you're married. And even then it's like if he talks to you, like she is in a sticky situation right now because a Jewish man is talking to her. I also want to point out it's noon. So women don't get water at noon. They go early in the morning before it gets hot. Like that's what they do. And they do it in groups. They don't go alone. If this is like how they like pass their time. Does that make sense? Like they go with their friends early in the morning, they fill up their water, and while they're waiting and taking their turns, they're catching up each other on life. And this girl's going at noon. Let's think about this for a second. Why would you show up to like the last 5 minutes of a party or the last 5 minutes of lunch? Why would you slide in at the end? No, you can talk. We can have fun. Avoiding people. Who are my introverts? Yes, thank you, my people. All right, good. This is this girl. Like, she knows she's not wanted there. She is trying to lay low. She is trying to just pass off this. Like, she needs the water. Like, she's there to get the water. She's trying to get in and out, and Jesus is ruining her whole thing right now, putting her in a sticky situation, making it uncomfortable. And you're about to see my girl be hilarious. Let's keep going, okay? Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Okay, let me pause here for a second. He's like, can you give me a drink? She's like, you're not supposed to be talking to me. And he's like, listen, if you knew who I was, you would be asking me for a drink. Now, she's very annoyed at this point. Just stay with me here. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw from and the well is deep. Where are you going to get living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock? So essentially she's like, oh, are you? You're going to give me things to drink with your no jar, deep well. Are you better than Jacob? Like, can you guys pick up on like her annoyed? Like, she's very annoyed. Okay, Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water, he's not even deterred. He's just continuing with the metaphor this whole way. Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of life, welling up to eternal life. He is telling this girl some poetry, and this is what she says. Sir, how about you give me this water so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water? So she's getting sarcastic. Can everybody hear it? Like, she's annoyed. Like, you're over here with metaphors and poetry. You're completely ruining my quiet moment by the well. Here I am just trying to get things done. I'm trying to lay low, and you're just saying things to me. And he said, so then Jesus switches gears. This is my favorite. Go call your husband and come back. And she says, I have no husband. And he says, hold on, wait for it. You're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have 5. The man you live with now, not your husband. What you just said is quite true. I'm going to pause here for a second. So this is shots fired. But to get serious for a second, like, he left her some breadcrumbs. Can you see it? Like, hey, you don't know who you're talking to yet. Like, what if I give you a little bit? Like, will you pay attention? And she is so in her own mess that she can't see it. She can't see it. So then he's got to switch gears. And he's got to tell her about herself. He's got to take the mess and say, oh, this is what's stopping us? Cool, let's talk about it. Let's put it out there. Here's the mess. You've had 5. And to her credit, she does exactly what I would do. She pivots. Sir, the woman said, I can see that you're a prophet. Our ancestors worshiped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place that we must worship is in Jerusalem. She tries to change the subject with God. She literally pivots to something entirely different. So Jesus is like, okay, I'll do your thing. Woman, he said, okay, there we go. All right, we're there. Woman, Jesus replied, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. He goes with her pivot here a little bit, and then he hits her with this, or she tries one last time to get out of this. I know that Messiah called Christ is coming, and you know what, man? Mr. Prophet dude who seems to know all the things, when he gets here, he'll sort this whole thing. And this is my favorite line. Is everybody with me? Jesus leans in. He has to have whispered because it would be so dramatic. I'm him. Now, this is very cool so that you guys can understand this. This is the beginning of Jesus' ministry. We're in John chapter 4, not John chapter 19 and 20. We're at the beginning. He hasn't declared his divinity to anybody yet. He's not said Messiah. People have questioned. He's not told. Do you know who the first person is that he tells? Her. He finds her. Guys, he's reckless. He is reckless about redemption. Reckless. It's really, really important that he throws some divinity on her. He hits her with it right there. He tells her, it just changed everything. We did a song just a second ago about the names of God, and it's really important to me that you guys know one of them, because we make the habit sometimes. I know I do, and I know I'm up here being funny. That's mostly because I'm nervous and mostly to keep your attention. But true story, like, we sometimes treat God like he's like a sidekick, like he's like a grandpappy in the sky that we talk to when we're having a bad day. Like, he's just hanging out waiting for us to need him. The Bible's clear. This is Yahweh. Yahweh is the name that they used in Hebrew that you couldn't even say. Like, you weren't even supposed to say it, because it was an understanding, like, this is the inventor of time. This is the person who says when the sun rises and when it sets, where oceans start and where they end. This is the inventor of all people and all things at all times. The stars you look at, that's him. And it's really, really important that you understand who he is and how he works. This is a powerful, good reckless God. He cares not about our rules. I need you to understand that. And we write a lot of them. We really do. We tell people why they matter and when they matter. We tell them what to do to be important, to mean something. We tell people all the time who and how to be the person they're supposed to be. And God breaks all of those rules. That's not how that works. He goes into mess to redeem it. He's reckless about it. And if you guys haven't heard that word, redemption means to wash it off and make it new. He's in the business of taking broken things and bringing them back to life. He's in the business of getting all the mud off. That's what he does. And there's nothing stopping him. I want you guys to understand that that's probably true for you too. Like, he knew she was in Samaria. He came right for her. Like, that's the craziest thing. He came right to her. He broke every rule and sat down in her world with her. And I wonder, guys, like, we know your mess. Like, do you think he's been watching? Like, do you think he sees? And if he sees, do you think he's been waiting for some moments to maybe just kind of get that out of the way? If so, that means he's been with you this whole time too. And so if you see her in this story, I just think it's super interesting. He's recklessly pursuing her, and this is an unnamed woman in the story. I like that she's unnamed. I really do, because it's one of those things where it's like, it's me. I mean, how many of you guys have ever tried to just lay low? Like, I'm just trying to get through Wednesday. Like, I'm just trying to do that. Right, exactly. How many of you guys have been like, man, I hope nobody messes with me. Like, I just need everybody to leave me alone. All my introverts were like, yes, please, yes. It's unnamed because she's us. Like, that's who she is. It's unnamed because it's me. It's unnamed because it's you. We can plug ourselves in, and yet he's recklessly pursuing us. Recklessly pursuing us. Now, this is important before we head to how this story ends, because it's very cool, and I hope it's super inspiring. Redemption is not just a cleanup thing. Redemption is a cleanup with a job description attached to it. This is the coolest thing about how Yahweh works. When Yahweh comes in, first of all, let's hit this. When Yahweh comes in and asks to clean up your mess, the only acceptable answer is yes. Everything else is silly. Like, true story, everything else is silly. If you are up to your ears in debt, you're about to lose your home, you're about to lose everything. You're like, I mean, if you are absolutely like destitute, I'm about to be out on the streets, and Jeff Bezos shows up and says, do you want me to take care of everything? What's the answer? Yes. Absolutely. And then the next question should be like, well, are there strings attached? And when it comes to God, the answer is, yeah, there are. There's a job description, but I want you to see what she does, and I want you to see how cool the job description is. So we're going to catch up with her. Then, leaving the water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come see a man who told me everything I did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out to the town, and by the way, just pause here. She says, could this be the Messiah? Are we all in agreement? Does she know? Yes. She's throwing this out hypothetically to the people who won't talk with her. Like, maybe, I just need you to come check it out. Like, if you'll just come check it out, you might see. They came out of the town and they made their way toward him. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him. They made Jesus stay with them, and he stayed for 2 more days. And because of his words, many more became believers. Okay, so she says yes, right? And there's a job description attached to that. When we get cleaned up, the job description is that other people should see it. Now, it's very important. I want to go back here for just a second. I need to find it in here. There it is. Okay. Leaving her water jar. Guys, this is funny. Okay, come on, this is super funny. She showed up to get water at noon. She just needed water. It's the only thing she water. I just had to get up here. I've just got to get my water for the day. She has a 5-minute conversation, and what does she forget all about? Water. The whole thing's gone. The jar is gone. She has completely left everything. She's forgot what mattered and moved on to what mattered more. It's that simple. It's that easy. So one of my questions is like, what's your jar? So I'm a therapist, and I get to hear about people's stuff all day long. Like, that's what I do. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but that's what I do for a living, is I get to watch people get bogged down and ripped apart by things that I know as a Christian don't matter. They don't matter. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, who talks to me? Who broke up with me? Who's inviting me? Who's liking my post? Who's not liking my post? Like, who I'm having problems with, where the issues are, what my grades are going to be, are we going to win the next game? All those things. I understand it. I've been there too. I'm guilty of it. I completely understand. Those are the things that play out in your head over and over and over again. But at the same time, forget the jar. Just leave it. Just leave it. How many of you guys have ever been to see the ocean before? Do you ever get a sense when you're sitting by it that like nothing else matters? It's so big. You're like, to-do list, like nonsense at home, work, like all of those things. There's a reason people love the beach. It's so big, you forget. That's one time where I can feel it, for sure. That's one time where I can feel it. Do you know the other time that I can feel it, that nothing else matters? Worship. Worship is one of those times where you're there and all of a sudden it's like the jar just stops becoming important. It becomes the side character in the story. Do you guys ever have moments like that where everything that you were so consumed about earlier in the day just suddenly disappears? That's redemption. That's what that is. The universe comes in line. This is a big, powerful God, and he wants me in on it. That's incredible. That's an incredible offer. I want to come in. I want to come into the mess. I want to clean it up, and I want you on my team, and I want you going to make a difference. It took this woman 2 days to change an entire village. What are we doing? If everybody in this room forgot about their jar, what would we look like? Would it look different? And I guess maybe the most important thing is like, would it look different for you? At the end of the day, guys, like the mess is the mess. We all come in with it. I have it, you have it, Taylor has it. We're all in here with mess, but that's who he is. He's drawn to it. I promise. He's followed some of you guys right here, right now. And he's offering you a job description. I promise. Not just to clean it up, but to put the call on you. And I think one of the reasons why Taylor's doing this message is so that you can understand that there are some women in this room right now that you're having a call put on your life, that you're having an opportunity to get in on changing your community, of occupying all streets. And at the end of the day, guys, when Yahweh asks to come into your mess, what's the only acceptable answer? Yes. Let's pray.